Recording in progress.
Okay. So in yesterday's okay. So hi everyone, thanks for joining. So in yesterday's class we saw that how to plan the stakeholders engagement, right? Like how we need to plan and how we need to like schedule that first session and all that. Okay. Now we are going to talk about plan business analysis governance. So like when an overall project is given, like as a business analyst, what you have to do, like how you need to like make decisions on the requirements, on the design, how to like make sure all the requirements are reviewed, and what is change control process, how to get approvals, and how we need to prioritize the requirements. So in the plan business analysis governance means like you are doing all the planning for yourself, like how you need to like do the approach, right? So first you need to plan like what from your side, right, how well you need to be prepared in order to gather the requirements. So some of the instructions what they have given here is how business analysis work will be approached or prioritized. What's the process for proposing a change to the business analysis information? Who has the authority or responsibility to propose the changes? And who is responsible for analyzing the change request? And who has the authority to approve the changes? And how these changes can be documented? So let's say that let's go to this Bank of America website. Okay, so I'll take this as a an example. So you are gathering requirements for this front end, and I mean business is fine. Now you're documenting it. Okay, once you are documenting and you get the sign off. Okay, when we say change control process, there is a difference here. So you are gathering the requirements, and then you create a BRD or whatever the requirement gathering documents, and you get the sign off. Okay, once you get the sign off, now after getting the sign off, when you're ready to develop or you are in the middle of the development or in the testing phase, now the business people wants to change this thing. Okay, now they want to change the something in their requirements. That's when like you have to like understand the change control process. So when we say any kind of changes or change request, right, now that is when, because when you already get a sign off, okay, when we gather all the requirements and everything is in place, now they want additional changes. That could be for any reason. Okay, so but if there are changes, right, who is responsible for approving those changes? Okay, who is responsible for analyzing those change requests? So it needs to come through a process. So you cannot be like, they cannot send you an email and then they'll be like, okay, let me change everything. No, it's called change control process. Okay, so change control process, and those change requests needs to like follow a process. So you have to tell the business owner in prior itself, like before we get the sign off, I understand you can like modify the requirements and all that, but once the requirements are finalized, once it is documented, once they provide the sign off, or if we are in the middle of the development, then if you want to change anything, right, it has to go through this change control process only. And when they submit this request, okay, when they submit this change request, it's not up to you to decide whether this can be done or not. Okay, what you have to do is, once they submit those requests, you have to discuss internally with your team, because now the budget may increase or decrease. Okay, now the budget may be increase or decreasing. Our developers may be already started, they would have already started the development, so we don't know how much effort they have put from their side and all that. So any change request, you have to like discuss with your internal team, and you have to get approval from your team first whether this can be done or not, or how long it's going to take, whether there'll be change in the budget, and only then you need to like communicate with the your business owners. Okay, so it's very important how like you have to like set standards to the business owners prior itself. When you do the very first meeting itself, like you have to tell them this, because they may not be aware of all this process. They'll be like, okay, I'll give the requirement, IT team has to do it. because I'm the business owner. I have the money, I have the funding, I'm giving the requirement, they have to do it for me. That's how they will be. But it's not like that. We have limitations with our resources, with our like how much uh, work can be done in our backlog. We may have many stories, right? So it's up to the business analyst to make sure that these change requests are going through a process. Okay, and we need to make sure who is the authority, who's making this change, who wants this change, whether that is the right person. If there are five different like process owners or business owners, like if one person is saying that change this, can we change it? Okay, so that we need to make clear in the very first meeting itself, like who's the correct point of contact, who will give us the sign off if there is any change request, whose words like you have to take it into account. All this needs to be documented in an email. Okay, it's very important. Like you attend the call, they say you something, don't assume because you won't have proof. After every meeting, right, you send the minutes of the meeting. Okay, you send the minutes of the meeting, and in the minutes of the meeting, right, you write down everything in points what happened discussed in those meeting, and then you document it, because otherwise business analysts have no proof that what's happening, and like whether they told it or not. So after every meeting you need to send the minutes of the meeting to everybody who attend the meeting, and then whatever happened in that meeting, right, you need to put it in like bullet points, so that it's documented in an email. And tomorrow, like if they change something, right, you have proof that this is what they told in that meeting. Okay, now when it comes to decision making, right? So as I already told you, like we need to like understand who is the key person, okay, for approving all these decisions. And whenever there is a change request, we have to consider is they are giving a change request, how much it will cost, whether and how much time it will take for the change, and what is the benefit of that change request. Okay, whether like what do you say, if they change something in front end, for example, if in this front end screen they change something here and they want to do that change, right, why we have to do that change, like what is the benefit of that? Okay, you need to ask those questions. Okay, I understand you want to change something, but what is the use of it, and what is the risk of it? Okay, so if you change something now, what will happen? Because from a front end perspective they may change, but technically, like what are the risks we have as a development team, right? What are the risks we have, and what are the features that um, we may have to like avoid in order to have that new feature, right? So what are the risks, what's the priority, and how are we going to do it? Okay, it's very important. Like whenever you have a change request, you have to consider all these factors, and then accordingly only you need to like make sure whether these changes are prioritized, or how this whether these changes are taken into actually account. Okay, all these factors are very important. Once these changes are being documented, right, we need to like communicate, and we need to again the same process, we need to document them, we need to review again we need to get approval, again you will get the sign off for those changes, right, again you will get the sign off. Okay, same process. Any change request internally you will discuss, make sure you will I mean whether it can be done or not. Again you need to document it, again you need to get the sign off for those change requests too. Okay, that's the process for all the requirements. And then you can like start continuing the development. Okay, and but you have to keep in mind that if they're constantly changing requirements, okay, like for example, it's a 2 month project or 3 month project, between the 2 or 3 months they're continuously changing the requirements, then it's going to be a nightmare for you and your development team, right? So but that has happened, that will happen, and we have to like accommodate with those people. Okay, so what will happen is constantly, like today they say something, and then after like you document everything, and then like after a week, maybe in next week's meeting they tell you a different thing, and you'll be like, no, but in last meeting you told me that. Okay, they'll be like, no, I didn't know, I discussed with my team members, but they're saying like this is the route. Okay, then you document that, and then after the next meeting they'll be like, I don't want this, give me a different. So if they're constantly changing, something, okay, and you're having a nightmare, okay, with the business owners, then you have to like set standards with them, okay. That's why the very first meeting is very, very, very important. You have to like clearly set like that, those standards, that give me clear and crisp requirements, okay. Do not be constantly changing requirements. You are wasting my time and your time. But we cannot tell those words, but you have to tell in a professional way. Please give me the correct or appropriate requirements, okay. And I have to document this. Once you, based upon this requirement only, I will be giving the budget, okay. So based upon whatever they are telling us, that's when we'll be giving the budget. So if you're constantly changing that, the budget will be changing, okay. Whenever you talk to the business owner, please always talk to them in a budget or cost perspective, because then only then they will be like afraid of changing anything. You say that you want the change, I know, but it will cost you, right? That's how we building a house. So if the contract, you give a, if you give a plan to a contractor is fine and he's building it, suddenly you are the homeowner, you're going and saying that, can I have the kitchen in this layout? What will the contractor say? Of course we can do it, but that will be a different budget. Are you ready for the budget? Then you'll back off, okay. No, same thing, okay. So you will always say that, I understand, but give me proper requirements, because I have to talk with my internal team and architects. Based upon that, your budget will change hugely. So I want to give you proper requirements, okay. So otherwise, don't schedule that call, okay, because we don't want to you to get frustrated, the business owner to get frustrated. That rap, I have already told you that rapport is very important. So you have to make very clear in the first call itself, like all the requirements needs to be like properly given to us, okay. This constant changing of requirements, we understand that there can be a change, but this is not something consistent, because then you lose interest in that project and you don't want to schedule calls, and then you'll be like, oh, this person is going to be like spoil my entire day, so I don't want to even to talk to that person. So we don't want all that, right? We have to draw like that line between, like, this is a professional setting, they want the work to be done and you want this work to be done. So you have to clear that, you have to set standards, and you always say that I want very clear requirements, tell me the data flow, or you tell me the data flow and I can give you the how this can be automated, and let's go further on discussing on each requirement. That's how you have to take the conversation, okay. And so once that once we have all the information in hand, okay, once we have all the requirements in hand, now what we have to do is, how are we going to trace those requirements, okay. So I already told Jira is the very important tool. So you can trace requirements through Jira, or you can, if you want to do it manually, we can do the requirement traceability matrix. In olden days, before 10 years and all, right, Jira was not there. So we used to do like, we used to have an Excel sheet, and all the requirements, we will write all the requirements, and we'll be like tracing every requirements manually, okay, who's responsible for those requirements, whether it's completed or it's in progress or it is done. So like that we will do it manually. But once Jira was, after we have products like Jira or any other this requirement tracing tools are available, right now it's much easier, because once you create stories, it's in the backlog, it can be traced. Anybody who sees the user stories will know whether it's in ready status or whether it's in done status, or whether it's an in progress status. What is the status of that user story? What is the whether whether anybody's working on it, or you can see the comments for every user story, so you can always see whether it's whether anybody's working on it, or there are any blockers for that user story. It is an in review, any status, right? Just by seeing the user story, everybody will know. If you're using this manual RTM or this traceability documents, the problem is every time those people will ping you, or if that's the only advantage in Jira. So once the user story is there, all the status is there, so just by seeing it, they need not like ping you all the time, they need not communicate with you. Just by seeing the user story, they will know, okay, this is in progress, this is done, or what is the status like. Let's see the comments, what is the developer doing, what is the tester doing, whether the test results are attached in it, or whether the development is in not has progress or not started any kind of status, right? Just by seeing that user story we can determine. So that's the very very important um, difference between using Jira and the manual, like whatever Excel sheet we are using. We always prefer to use these kind of tools, because if you leave the organization, right, this Excel sheet goes with you, whereas if it's in Jira, it's there forever. Okay. So how are we going to like trace? Okay, each requirements, how are we going to trace it? Okay, so we have Excel sheets, or we can use those one of the tools. Okay, next is like how can we um, reuse the requirements. So for example, some of the business rules, like we can always like reuse it. Okay, so for example, here we have an here we have that if you enroll, right, it is authenticating whether it is this SSN is a valid SSN or not. When you type here, right, it is authenticating it, right? So okay, I'm giving a dummy information. If you see here, it is authenticating. It is saying that it's not matching our record. So okay, it is authenticating. Sometimes this validation, this social security validation, right, you can use on different projects too, because this is a standard validation. Okay, it's not for Bank of America. You can use this same validation for a different project too. Okay, so those kind of like requirements, right, you can always reuse for the same project or maybe a different project. You can reuse it. Okay, so if you have chance to reuse any requirements, you can always like note it down and you can reuse it. Okay, but it's not that you have to reuse those requirements only for that particular project. You can always use those requirements for other projects, similar kind of features. If we have for a different project, right, we can always reuse those requirements. And requirement attributes, how a requirement should be. Okay, so we always know that requirements are very very important, and it needs to be very very clear. Okay, so I think we already discussed about this priority and status and everything. Okay, let's go into how to monitor. Yeah, so one of the important thing is how to like do performance analysis of our own work. So this is called as business analysis performance improvements. This is like a process to improve your work, how whether you're doing it in the right way. Okay, this is an assessment for like individually for any business analyst. You have to like do it by yourself whether we are doing a right job. Okay, so let's say that business analysis work depends upon the context of a particular organization or initiative. Reports on business analysis performance can be informal and verbal. They may also include formal documentation. Reports on business analysis performance are designed and tailored to meet the needs of the various type of viewers. It means like you are doing a measurement for yourself. Okay, whether I'm gathering a requirement, whether that requirement is correct or not. Okay, so you are doing a performance evaluation for your work itself. Okay, it could be like a formal, documented, or it could be informal. Like I said here, it could be informal and verbal. How can we like do that analysis? We can always like review with our peers. Okay, you can get feedback from our stakeholders. You can always get reviews with our peers, with our managers, or with our senior analysts, or some whoever is like, or our technical architects. We have to like ask them whether, however, is this approach correct? This is how the plan should be. Is this correct or not? You need to constantly do that validation with your internal team, because we are also humans. We assumption is something we just assume, right? This is how this project has to be, like we assume it in a certain way. But like views can be very different. Like our internal team developers may think in a different perspective, our architects may think in a different perspective, our managers may think in a different perspective. So it's I know that you are a lead BA, but your performance has to be constantly like evaluated. Okay, whenever you gather requirements, you just make sure you talk with everybody, like you do ask them to review your requirements and make sure it's correct. Okay, so this appropriate performance measures is very very important, because you may be heavily influenced by everybody's like attitudes, perceptions, and like that's what they're saying. So we are interacting with a lot of people, right? So you may be heavily influenced by those people's ideas. So it's definitely important you review with your peer. Okay, so my recommendation is like definitely you have to review with your senior business analyst. Okay, you have to like say, is this correct? I am like gathering requirements for a project. If you have any doubts, you can like ask them, like, is this correct? Can you take a look, do the peer review, and make sure that all your requirements are like proper. Okay, this is very important. You may have 10 years experience, 15 years experience, but still there are like, you're prone to do errors, right? So it's always important like you review with your peers. Okay, and don't hesitate, don't be shy to ask that to your peers, like, can you review my requirements? Don't be shy. Okay, because tomorrow if something happens, something is there is a problem because of the gathering requirements, then you can be like, I always reviewed with my peers. It's not only a single person's decision, right? So that is also there. So constantly you need to, if you want to become an expert, or if you want to become a very very professional BA, right, from the very beginning of your career, right, always like get feedback from multiple people. Even so, they won't tell you how your work is, but you have to like constantly ask them, is this correct? This is my requirement correct? This is done in a very proper way? Is the acceptance criteria what I'm writing is in the correct format? Can you please help me? So if you're a junior, or if you're entering in a trainee level itself, right, you need to be open to a lot of feedbacks, because only then you'll be learning a lot. But if you are already going as a senior BA, okay, for example, you are already having 10 years of experience in a different field, now you want to transition your career to IT, and you are going as directly you are getting hired as a senior BA, then you need to be very careful. Okay, because then you should not be like asking every single thing to your peers. Then they'll be like, okay, this person doesn't have any experience, this person is constantly asking. So there is a difference when you are hired directly as a senior BA. Okay, because in US they do hire you also. They think that you can be from a different background and you are hired into IT, they may directly give you sometimes the senior posting and everything. So if you're directly hired, then you need to be like very careful on what you're talking to your peers and how much information you know. And then so you have to be very careful, very professional. But if you are joining as a trainee, definitely you can ask these questions, and you can learn a lot from your peers. Okay. So let's go into okay, so I think we had this okay, tomorrow I'm going to teach about elucidation and collaboration. I think Mahendra gave me yes.
Hi, ma'am. Uma this side.
What?
Uma, ma'am. My name is Uma. Hi, ma'am. This is my first class.
Okay, hi Uma.
Ma'am, sorry to mind you in middle of the session. Just one question I have. Can I ask?
Yes.
Yeah, ma'am, like for an entry level, like a fresher, and for 2 years person experience, the interview level of a BA will be different, or will it be in a generalized manner? Like,
So where are you? You are in India or in US?
I'm in India, ma'am.
Okay.
Currently.
I mean, like, do you have a gap in your career, or how is it?
No, ma'am. I finished my master's recently, and I have 1.5 year of work experience as BA, but not as a professional BA. Due to this pandemic, I just worked in a startup.
Mm-hmm.
So currently, I'm residing in India.
Okay,
So
but
I
you
want
want
to move
to
now
get
to.
into a corporate like an MNC, a big
Yes,
MNC.
I'm planning to move to MNCs, ma'am. I really want this suggestion from experienced persons like you.
Yeah, so like you said 1.5 years experience, right, as a BA?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yes,
now
ma'am.
you cannot even like put that experience, right? So whatever in your resume is like you have 1.5 years of experience. That's what you can show in your resume. So I don't think so. They will be hiring for a senior level. They will be hiring for a junior level. Yes, the interview will be very different. for a senior BA, and also it will be different for a junior BA, right? For junior BA, they may be asking you like, and do you know documentation? Like, they may ask you like standard theory questions, or do you know the basics of BA? Okay, only that they will be asking. For a lead BA, right? They'll be mostly asking about like from a design perspective, like how if there is a new project given, how will you handle it? Can you explain how to draw an architecture diagram? Like how are you going to like um, design this new project? Like how will you like lead the project, right? Like that they may be. So the interview will be very different for a senior BA. Yes.
So precisely they'll be focusing on the previous project what we have worked if we have experience, right? Like
Yeah, so they'll definitely ask for this, for that 1.5 years experience. What did you do?
okay, okay, yes, ma'am, I got it.
Right,
Yeah,
right. You have
thank
to
you.
like, yes.
Yeah, yes, ma'am, thank you. I got it. So now, like architecture in the sense, like mostly BAs will not work in architecture, right? It's a software architect is the person who deal with architecture. Use case diagrams and activity diagrams are things you're talking about for designing.
So for design perspective, right? Even though you are not a technical person, you need to know that end-to-end flow, right? So this architecture diagrams, what I'm saying is technically maybe you will not know exactly in backend what these developers are doing, but you have to like know from a design perspective where is the data starting and where it is ending.
Okay. So
Technically,
how
I'm
the
saying.
entire process is going on in the
Right,
project, right?
right. So it's not
Okay.
that it is a simple diagram I'm talking about. When the developers give you a technical diagram, okay, architects usually
Okay.
they are the ones who draw the technical diagram. You need not know every single bit of it, but you need to know the data flow exactly.
Mhm. Yeah. So
Understood?
data flow knowing in the sense like what precisely, ma'am, like the process, right?
Okay, let me give you an example. Okay.
Sure, ma'am.
Okay, so let's say that okay, okay. Okay, this is a healthcare claim form, right? Okay, now this is done manually. Okay, let's say that the business owner is coming and telling you this is a paper claim. Okay, this we are sending to the members, right? This one we are sending to the members. Let's say that you're working for a big health insurance. This is a paper
Okay.
claim where the members have to like like fill in everything, their data. Okay, first name, or this the members they themselves can submit the claim, or the doctor, anybody can do it. Okay, so they are filling this data and they are sending this claim to the insurance company. Okay, let's take this is the um, project. Okay, they're coming to you, they're saying that all this claim forms needs to be automated, help me. Okay, that's how they're coming and telling you. What you have to do
Okay.
is, okay, first thing is like we understand that. So it's going to be in paper, and the members or doctors, like they have to members or providers. Okay, so the providers, they can submit this claim, right? Okay, so this is a paper claim, this is
Okay.
not an electronic claim. Okay, this is a
Yeah.
paper claim.
Yeah.
They are our insurance have to accept this paper claims in a within like particular timeline, and we have to process this. When we say automation, right, we have to process this paper
Mm-hmm.
claim, we have to load the data into our database, and we have to process the claim whether it is approved or denied. Okay, now
Okay.
the business owner is saying that please automate this. Okay, we want this to be automated. Right now it's manual, please automate this. If they're coming to you, what you have to do from a design perspective, like you will be asking from a design perspective, what you will ask is, okay, what is the address this claim is coming? Okay, what is the address? First we need to understand all the claims, right? What is the address, the
Yes.
insurance address where it is coming? Okay, once these claims are coming, we need to scan these documents, right? So we need to scan these
Yes.
documents, right? Scan, when you scan these documents and when it is loaded into a system, okay, do you want that all this information to be keyed in the front end itself, or it needs to be automatically like the data needs to be pulled from this every For example, if you just scan, right, using this barcode, if you just scan this document, every field, whatever is there, okay, patient address or patient's name, everything, right, whether it can be automatically, like you want the software to read or you want to key all the information from there, just by scanning it needs to pick up the data and it needs to be loaded into the some database. Do you want that feature? Or someone from the scanning team will manually enter all this data, just scan the document, and then whatever is there, right, like 1 2 3 4, whatever is there, we are going to load the data directly, like keying. Someone has to key the information. Do you want that? Definitely they will be telling that we need automated, because we need a claim to be processed maybe in like within a minute, right? Within a minute it needs to be processed, because there will be a lot of claims every day. They may get like thousands and thousands of claims, right? So what the business owner will tell you is, just by scanning, you scan everything and all the data needs to be like automatically picked up, and then it needs to be stored somewhere, right? So if they say that, that's what they want, okay. So if we say that, right, like how much of development can be done in this, we never know. Whether like that automation, just by scanning a paper, whether all the fields can be like scanned by the scanning software, whether that can be pulled from the scanning software and can that data be loaded in the database, we never know. So that's when with these architects, this development team, these developers are very very important. Now you can tell them like the overall flow. Okay, the paper is coming, it is being scanned by the scanning team, all the data is being pulled from the paper and it is stored in the database, and somewhere when the case manager or the claims approver, like when in their front end, if they log in, they'll be able to see all the claims form, all the scanned documents, whatever it is. You can tell the data flow, but technically you need to know, if the developer, if the architect is coming and telling that how this everything will be like shown in the front end, or like how much of data can be pulled by the scanning software, what is the limitation we have in the scanning software. They may say that, or the developer can say that not all the fields can be like automated, there we need some manual help there. Or they may say that if the handwriting is not good, then the scanning machine will not be able to read that. Okay, for example, they fill everything here, okay, now then the scanning machine will be like, it's not able to read anything, right? So they may have those limitations. That's when we need to know, we need to take help of these architects or developers, and say that exactly technically, right, what are the limitations we have and how that design. So you need to know technically what are the fields will be like automated, or what are the fields that needs to be like manually keyed. Those helps, right, you have to take from the architects. They may give you a design document, like how it is automated, what are the fields it will be automated, scanning teams, scanning software's limitations and all that, right, that and all, like they will give you an architectural diagram. But like you need to know from, as a business analyst, if you know, I mean, at least from a very very high level like technical point, right, you need to know what are the limitations of the scanning software, what is the end-to-end flow.
Okay. Okay. So even though if a business analyst is not having the technical knowledge, in-depth technical knowledge, it doesn't um it doesn't affect him, right, in the actual work scenario.
No, yeah, you need not, you anyway you're not going to develop anything, right, but you need to know.
Yeah. He should have an idea, okay, what's happening.
Right, you need to know. That will come only by experience.
Okay.
But you need to know. See, you cannot be a plain vanilla BA. So just like with just plain English, you cannot survive in IT. Okay, somehow technically you need to know something.
Technical
Yeah, the
terminology
process.
is really important.
Yes, the process you need to know.
Process.
You're not going to develop anything. Nobody's asking you to do a code in Java or nothing in a mainframe. Nothing. Nobody's going to ask you to code. Nobody's asking you to do anything in backend. But that process, how it is happening, and what are the validations we are doing. For example, like if there is no insurer ID or member ID is there, then how can we process this claim? This is going to be a reject scenario, right? This member ID or insurer ID is very very important. Without that member ID, How can we scan this document? How can it be loaded into the database? We cannot do that. This is a reject claim then. So that you need to know.
Yeah.
Understood?
Got it.
The process
Yeah.
and what are the scenarios, what are the positive scenarios, what are the negative scenarios, what are the mandatory validations we are doing for any process. That all that you need to know.
Even the test cases also, ma'am, like what could be the possible test scenarios or test cases also?
Right.
Should we know them?
Right. So in the UAT, so for example, we are automating this claim. Let's say that we automate this claim. And when in the UAT, in the user acceptance testing, you have to tell to the business what are the scenarios. So like I said, this is mandatory. Without the insurer's ID, you cannot even like, this is a reject then. If you want to process that claim, then this insurance number or first name or last name, that unique number is mandatory. Otherwise, how will you load that into a database?
Yes.
Right? So
Got it. Yeah.
that is the scenario. You need to say that validate insurer ID or number is mandatory. Otherwise, what will happen? The system has to reject.
Okay.
We cannot process this claim.
Yeah.
Same way, they give you there can be some mandatory validation. For example, the ICD diagnosis code, where is blank, then reject. If procedure code, all this is blank, then reject. So you have to write those scenarios actually. How will you know that? You need to talk to the business owners.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, for that you need your technical team help and your business owners help also, because the technical team, the developers will tell you we cannot process this claim because mandatory validations needs to happen. It's not there, reject, that's it. If those mandatory validations are there, so for example, insurer's ID is there and diagnosis code is there, and we are able to pull, if you scan this, at least a few mandatory information is there, then the data can be loaded into the database. That's a positive scenario. That test case is a pass. But if it's not there, then you reject. That's it. That's a rejected scenario.
Yes. Understood.
Yeah, you need to know that. You don't see you'll be in the entire project, right? From scratch, from requirement gathering till you get the sign off, you'll be there. So you will know the end-to-end process. But you need to be at least in like one project. If you're there in like in real time, if you are in one project, right, then you will learn a lot in that one project. Then all the second and third projects, it's going to be an easy breeze. Just getting that break and getting that first job interview, getting into that first IT project, that's very crucial.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
No worries. Does anybody have any other questions?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
Yes.
Yeah, others here.
Yes, hi Adish.
Yeah, good morning, ma'am. Ma'am, I have a question. My CV is not being shortlisted by any company. I am applying from last 1 month.
Okay, like what is your background?